Well, thank you, and welcome to the first day of summer. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, along with a little extra help here on the phone line right now to kick things off for the first day of summer. We have Rich Nelson on the line. He's with Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. So, Rich, happy summer to you. The longest day of the year. It's all downhill from here, as my dad used to say. The days keep getting shorter till we get into wintertime. But in the meantime, things are pretty hot and steamy in lots of the country here right now. And it seems like what may be miserable for humans might be good for plants. It seems to put a little pressure on the markets from time to time.
Certainly true here, and especially as we are talking about all of our warm season crops here. They are going to be enjoying some of this heat and bright sunny skies here. And certainly for the coming weekend, some moderate temps lined up after that. So for the most part, we can't ask for a better forecast in the short term here.
Okay, let's take a look at our overnight trade here, and maybe you can help decipher some things. If we look at our Globex market, at last check on the corn market this morning in the early hours, we had the July corn a penny and a half higher at 371.5, and we have December also a penny and a half higher. It's now trading at 389.5 at last check as we get ready for the open in the daytime session here. On the soybean side overnight, we had the July contract on the soybeans. If we can switch screens, there we go. We have July up a penny as well at 928 3/4, and November was up just one tick at 939 even. Meanwhile, on the wheat market, this is kind of interesting here, Rich, where we had the wheat backing up. It's going south here. July Chicago wheat down 6 1/4 overnight at 466 1/4. In Kansas City wheat, we have July currently down 6 overnight at 468 1/4. And in the Minneapolis spring wheat trade, July was down 8 1/4 at 648. So the biggest moves by far were in the wheat trade once again, but this time to the downside. Any reasoning behind why we saw that kind of motion?
I do believe that some of the maps have changed a little bit as far as the forecast maps compared with yesterday. And in fact, one of the morning 6-10 days just updated here has actually a good bit of rain lined up for North Dakota as well. So perhaps that 21% drop in ratings of the past 3 weeks for spring wheat, maybe we'll finally see that stop and maybe get a small rebound at some point here next week or two here.
I can hear the producers arguing with you already out there as they're saying, well, it's too late to do any good at this point. The crop, once it heads out and it's 6 inches tall, it's not going to make any more than that if you add rain on it.
That's exactly right, and in most cases that would be right. However, our big wild card we always have to draw out in these type of discussions is the fact that, well, it's wheat. And meaning no matter what you can throw at this market, oftentimes this crop can surprise you once the combines finally roll. So maybe that's something that the market might be looking at as far as its mindset here today.
We have been hearing talk about some lousy conditions on the wheat in Europe, or at least in parts of Europe, and some analysts had said that was part of the reason why we had a run up there recently. Have you heard anything about a change in their weather outlook?
For the most part, our main focus is going to be on France with that heat wave they've got, temperatures hitting the 90s. They will see some of that subside here a little bit here, but for the most part, we're still kind of like in the U.S., watching this crop very closely. And for right now, no one's going to say that the worst is done here just yet. Hopefully, we can make that call here in the next few days.
Okay, I want to take a look at the cotton market overnight as well to just see what the prices were doing there. That nearby July contract up 15 points overnight at 71.50. However, you had your December new crop contract, which is getting more and more popular, also gaining a little bit. It was up 12 points overnight, and it has climbed just barely back above 69 cents. It now is quoted at 69.09 overnight. Rich, I'll bring you back here in a moment, and we'll analyze what to expect out of that livestock trade today. Our guest, Rich Nelson. We'll have more right after this. Well, we are talking right now with our very special guest. It's Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated, and he is located in McHenry, Illinois. Well, we talked about the grain side, and I want to talk with you, Rich, here. For one thing, we'll get into livestock here in just a second. I wanted to pull up the crude oil market. A lot of folks have been talking about that, and I did see some adjustments at our local stations here since yesterday, where they did go downward in price a little bit finally on the gasoline prices. But August crude oil overnight on West Texas crude, it looks like now, the last check, it was up 3 cents at 43.54. I've seen them higher and lower overnight in this crude oil market. It has had quite a precipitous drop here in the last week or two. Do you think there's more to come, or do you think it'll stabilize for at least a little bit here?
You know, we certainly were surprised by that break below $45 itself here in this current trade right on this 43 range. I would suggest there's a value in terms of the big picture here. So in terms of whether it stopped, I'm not quite sure on this one, but I would suggest this is a very good price here for the most part for the rest of the year.
And are you paying a lot of attention to the value of the U.S. dollar these days? You know, we got down around 97 and just kind of stuck there. Right now we're down 100 points overnight on September futures on the dollar index. That puts them at 97.310. They're not moving very much here in the last day or two.
Certainly is something we're watching. In terms of our correlation with grains and whether that's a driver of price, maybe not too much right now, especially as we're determining yields and looking more at weather. But certainly as far as the dollar, no doubt we've got to watch that closely. A lot of people wondering if we'll have a rebound at some point later on this year, but for right now, it's not.
Well, we had another down day in the cattle complex yesterday, and I was looking in particular at the beef cutout values yesterday afternoon compared to the pork carcass cutout values. And what a story that tells. Choice cuts down yesterday afternoon by $2.47. USDA said they're priced at $246.99. Selects were down almost $1.50 at $219.88. But on the other hand, if you look at the pork carcass cutout values yesterday, what a difference that makes. We had the carcasses up $2.28 yesterday at $98.85, and the belly market was up $6.84 yesterday, a big gain there as well. The nearby hogs closed higher yesterday. The deferreds were a touch weaker over there. What do you think that translates into for potential here this week on the cattle and hog trade?
You know, on the cattle side, we got to suggest this would be another tough one regarding the cash cattle pricing. We're still in this free fall moment right now where we're seeing a lot of cattle feeders just market anything close to market ready in order to avoid those lower prices waiting in the coming weeks. So still see some further pressure on the cattle side. Over on the hog end of things here, this is still the seasonal time of year with the tightest supplies and still putting our finger on when the exact peak is going to happen. So it's very tough. But as far as the cash hogs, cash pork, we certainly would suggest this is near the higher end of the range, likely the highest of the year. Only question is what the exact day is here.
And we have several major reports coming up now in the next week or so. Tomorrow on the calendar, we have the cold storage report coming out from USDA, so that'll affect the beef and the pork. And then on Friday, we'll have our monthly cattle on feed report. And both of those will come out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Time, of course. And then if you go all the way out into next week even, we are going to be getting our quarterly hogs and pigs report that'll come out on the 29th of June, the second to last trading day of this month. The hogs and pigs report only comes out once every 3 months, and that'll be out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time as well. And then just to add to it, the day after that, we'll have our big quarterly grain stocks and planted acreage report from USDA. A lot of stuff coming down the pike here in the next 7 or 8 business days here. So, Rich, we're going to stay in close touch with you there, and appreciate your guidance as we go through these reports coming up here, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Good to visit with you. Rich Nelson of Allendale, Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. Putting the powder in the cannon here and waiting for these government reports.
Government reports.
A whole slew of them in the days ahead.
Going to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, it will.
Thank you very much, Marlon. Appreciate that.